Well, the balance sheet sometimes is louder than the employee sheet. And sometimes the balance sheet feels like there's more urgency behind it than because folks will be patient, folks will hem and haw about their feedback, folks will go, well, we were good last month and now things are so yeah, don't worry about it. Things will go back to normal. So folks are more patient than a spreadsheet. Folks are more patient than a balance sheet. Folks are more patient than a quarterly board meeting. But slowly and surely they will vote with their feet, right? And so the tyranny of the urgent can sometimes cause us to lose focus on what really matters, right?
Hello, Culture Talks. Here comes the middle finger, Dave. We're ready to go. Count on me now. Good to see you again.
How else would you know?
I know it's kind of that's kind of stimulating. Hey, today is. I want to ask you. Today is our oldest daughter, Garrett's sister, actually, birthday. Do you remember your first one's birth? And I'm sure you do. But what do you remember most about it?
So I remember a lot because it was a C-section, and I put it in my calendar, and I had it in my calendar, and we went to the C-section, and Camille was out of it. She was on a board, just like flirting with the anesthesiologist. And I got to watch, and they kept telling me, so, sir, are you going to pass out or anything? I'm like, no, I love this stuff. And so they opened her up and they picked him up, and the light from above the surgical table was shining down, and I had a little camera. So I took a picture, and this is the last time he ever looked this way. He looked so angelic, like the light was coming down on him, and he was going like this. And so I remember that vividly.
You know, the sunlight and sunshine on those first babies kind of are both part of our history. Like you as the lamp and the light and the angelic. When Keely was born, after she was born, the room that she and Kathleen were in had like a whole set of glass walls with the eastern sun coming in. It was 7 a.m. And the room was just, it was the middle of, it was July. It was the middle of July and the end of July, the 22nd to be exact. And the sun was just radiating through, and Kathleen and Keely looked absolutely like I was just like mesmerized by that whole experience. But in those days,
so was this on a covered wagon or
kind of pretty much
in those days? Back in my day.
But I invited all of her sisters and my brother and their brother and brothers, and we had a bunch of people over the house. Of course, Kathleen couldn't join in. But I remember the Eagles had just come out with the New Kid in Town.
Oh, yeah.
I had enough beer that I kept playing that over and over and over again. And so every time that her birthday comes up, I play the Eagles' New Kid in Town. And
do you remember when you got to take them home? And
yeah,
I just remember I remember talking to the nurse going, are you sure? Are you sure that you're going to let us take this kid home? Because I really have no clue what I'm doing. And
yeah.
No, sir, you should be fine. Do you know me? Because I don't think I'm fine. I don't think this is, and we drove like 7 miles an hour because in a Volvo, so we were like super safe. And Camille sat in the back with the baby, and we drove like, you're going too fast, the baby. And
I know.
It was.
By the time Garrett was born, it was like, is he back there? Do you know?
Yeah, what? The first one's porcelain and the second one's rubber. The first one's like, oh. And the second one's like, he fell again. That's fine.
Exactly. Hey, anyway, lucky us to have those great memories. But I last time we had this really interesting conversation about this technology company out of Italy that's kind of warping people's minds around what their business model, but also their all kinds of things around the kind of Glassdoor
hiring, their
4.7, their hiring and everything, right? Now, I want to, if you're okay with this, Dave, I kind of want to jump to the other end of the spectrum, because a lot of times people kind of criticize me around going, well, you use these big tech companies, NVIDIA and Anthropic, and how can they not but having great cultures? I mean, they're paying people and equity and blah, blah, blah. This is a company called True Car Wash. It has almost the same Glassdoor score that Vending Spoons does. It's been around since 1946. Private company. And you know how old you got to be to apply to work at the car wash? 16. My guess is that they're at the other, they don't get a million applicants.
Well, they might after this, but that's funny.
It's incredible. And, and then when you look at there, just to touch on a couple of things. So, how do you get a Glassdoor score of over 4.5
when you're hiring 16-year-olds?
And it's like their purpose and vision. And like a lot of times people go like, oh yeah, they've got McKinsey and Company and, or they're hiring you, Rubis, to go in and drive their culture. These guys, 1946. My guess is that there's been no consultants in there. And the purpose, like every day we strive to best possible experience for both our customers and crew members. It's not just a part of our culture. It is our culture. Crew purpose, crew smiles, and lifetime customers. Our crew vision, to be a role model of the service industry. Our crew values, use all the senses and take action. Safety is the first one. Integrity, stay honest, do what's right. Fun, connect, compete, laugh. Teamwork, help others before they ask. Accountability, own it, do what you say you'll do, and do whatever it takes. BYT. What is so effing hard about those?
The hard part is making sure you do it every day and that everybody's doing it. But if you're hiring 16-year-olds, not that there's anything wrong with 16-year-olds. Well, there's a lot wrong with 16-year-olds, but not like they're some sort of weird special outlier. But if you're hiring those folks, this is probably their first job. Probably their first paying gig. They have no idea what to expect. And you've got to be ruthless in making sure they're brought on board correctly and given examples. I imagine the 17-year-old that's there, who's been there for a year, is setting an example that those 16-year-olds can look up to. It's got to be something, and it has to happen right away. Because I'm not hiring you in the car wash and putting you through 4 months of training and 3 months of onboarding and all that other stuff. You're filling out your HR paperwork, and probably within 2-3 days, you're doing whatever the low end job is.
Just to connect the dots a little bit, I don't know if this is true, and I would be careful not to take one data point and exaggerate it. But someone told me the other day that a lot of the kids coming back from college or in high school don't have summer jobs, and I'm going like obviously they've got to be coming from affluent enough families that they don't have to. But I remember that my summer job was my lifeblood to having any kind of life at all.
Yes.
My mom and dad couldn't afford to go and give me a
No. As soon as you graduate high school, you're off the payroll. And you got 3 squares a day and you got a roof. That's it.
When I remember I was working on the railway when I was a 16-year-old, because my grandfather and uncle got me a job there, which is really dangerous, tough job, working on the tracks, like in the summer. And I could talk all day about that experience. But anyway, 2 years later, I was supposed to work, and railways decided not to hire any summer help. So all of a sudden, I didn't get to have a job. So I literally walked down, and I started at the bottom of a strip mall, like a whole long strip mall, Argyle Road in Edmonton. I went to every damn place there all day, filling out applications until I got a job.
Yes.
And the reason I raised it is that I want to hire, if I'm Anthropic, or do you have to go, Dave?
No, I'm good.
If I'm a highfalutin company, I think I want to know that my kids I'm hiring had summer jobs like at Crew Car Wash. Don't you think that's a prerequisite?
Well, you would think, like my youngest one did Boy Scouts, and so he got, his Eagle Scout kind of stuff. And a lot of folks comment on that when he was looking for work after high school and during, just to, were you part of something? Did you commit to it? Did you achieve the goals and objectives? And, just to know that I think service jobs in general are a great first job and a great perspective to have when you go into any other job, because you learn how to interact with other people. You get to learn how to interact with all kinds of various folks if you're dealing customer facing, and you get a chance to learn that it's, if you screw up, you're going to learn how to take it, how to take feedback.
Yeah. Now think about this for a minute, Doc. Here's the crew member promise. I just want to read it for a minute. At Crew Car Wash, we recognize that you are our most valuable asset. I have mixed feelings about saying that, but anyway, and our greatest advantage in creating lifetime customers. So, you know what? 1946 is still family run. They can get away with saying that, right?
Yes.
They're not being possessive. It's genuine, right? By listening to you and applying the principle of honesty, trust, and respect, we help you reach your full potential. Now, if you're in, they describe themselves as being in the people business. They happen to be a car wash. They're not a car wash that trying to get people in there. And we provide a safe, fun, rewarding environment, and with outstanding training and clear expectation, allowing us to achieve our purpose and vision. And I don't know, like, I mean, to me, like, it just, like, they do things like, I mean, it's a whole system. Like, they use 1/3 less water than the average car wash.
Yeah. Yeah.
So they do other things. It's a whole system, right? And they put a lot of effort into the kind of, biological safe soaps they use, blah, 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 blah. I mean, it's an outstanding experience to go, but it's a friggin' car wash.
Yeah, but the whole thing boils down to what you said to me probably 30 years ago. Are your feet lining up with your mouth? Because so often that's why those sorts of value statements and statements are, you are the most important. I bet there's a bunch of companies that say that, but when push comes to shove, profit is more important than you.
Yeah, no,
and that's the. Go ahead, Lorne.
No, I'm sorry, Dave. I think that's it. It's like, I think you have to have the courage to say that I'm not going to squeeze every nickel out of this kid and out of this customer. And the experience is that you're going to keep coming back and spending your $20 a month or 2 weeks.
Yes,
at my car wash. This is where you're coming.
What was the, I think we did an analysis years and years ago that it was some Sears and Roebuck analysis back in the day when Sears and Roebuck actually was around. And they looked at the stores that were performing well versus the stores that were not performing well. And the stores that were performing well paid higher, had better retention of their staff, had better scores from their staff relative to their bosses. They treated their staff with respect, because it trickles down into, especially in the service industry, you're customer facing, you're going to be interacting. And that sort of interaction is why you get that repeat business, why you get that. But the only reason I'm feeling that way and behaving that way is because I'm treated that way by the folks that are behind me. And I know the organization's going to trust me if I make a decision that might hit the bottom line, but it really is helpful for this customer. They want something special or they want something different. I can make that decision and now know that the organization's going to back me on that. I think.
So what's the mystery? Like literally, why? Like, you have all these companies you look at.
Yeah.
And there are all these companies out there everywhere. Like, I mean, I can just drive right around. They're everywhere. What is the mystery and so hard about doing this? Like, why, like, it's an abundant world. Why couldn't we have every service place be like Crew Car Wash? Like, what's in the way?
So to put my empathetic hat on, when organizations struggle with meeting the commitments that they say they're making, so if I make a commitment to say, you're our most valuable asset, and then my board is telling me you need to squeeze 5% more up to the bottom line, EBITDA is not where it needs to be, so you need to sacrifice this, even though we've promised that we would deliver that, you have to have the courage to stand in front of the folks everybody has a boss. You have to have the courage to stand in front of those folks and say, we're not going to do that because we committed this to this staff. And so I'm willing to take a haircut on my pay, or, you know what, maybe this isn't a good fit for me because I'm not going to behave in a way that's different than what I promised the team I was going to behave. And that takes, when you're in that spot and you need the job and you need to pay your bills, then you have that sort of struggle internally to say, are we going to do this or not? Right? I mean, you're caught in the middle. And so that's why who you hire and who you put in your board, those are important to make sure that they're going to stand with you when those difficult decisions have to be made. Because at the end of it, unless you're losing money and the business is going to go out of business, it's okay to have a little bit less margin if you have more retention and more engaged employees, and you demonstrate to them that if I tell you we're going to do X, we do X.
Yeah.
And that takes courage, that takes a willingness to take that step. And too often what we find is my spreadsheet isn't showing me we're going to realize the amount of profit that we need to realize. So we're going to delay paying bonuses, or we're going to not do the same match in our retirement that we promised, or where you start to compromise a little bit, it becomes easier to compromise bigger as you go forward. And folks are watching. Folks watch every little thing you do.
I agree. I think I want to go and hang out with
Good.
Joe Dam and his brother Ed. The Dam family.
So last week
still
you're going to
owns-
apply Bending Spoons.
Yeah.
And so while you're waiting on your response to your application to Bending Spoons, you're going to go work in the car wash. Is that
I
that's what
might
I'm
have
hearing?
a better chance of getting a job at the car wash. At least I have a chance there. I'm not so sure I get there either, but
Only
least I-
only if the person hiring is dyslexic. So this is 1-6. Oh, it's 6-1. So yeah, you're close enough. We can bring you.
you gotta be able to move around the car but the
I only do left side of cars. I only do left sides.
I want to share a story with you, and I want to then rewind the story back. So I was listening to a book that I'm reading, and the woman mentioned that a Nobel Prize winner in the U.S. got terminally ill and won the Nobel Prize, I think, in 1978. Got terminally ill and went in the hospital, and then had to auction off the Nobel Prize in order to pay for the hospital bills. So he ended up getting $700,000 for his Nobel Prize. And he ended up dying destitute in the nursing home, ran out of cash. And, you begin to think about when I think, and I want to be careful how I say this because I'm clearly an entrepreneur. I clearly believe in capitalism. However, I don't believe in that. I believe that if it gets so disoriented that you're squeezing every dollar out of something and you make it all about win-lose, then you end up having a situation you've taken all the compassion out of your world. You've taken all the investment of developing other human beings out of your world and caring for them. And you make it all end up being a spreadsheet item on your EBITDA performance.
Yeah.
And I think that's when things go wrong
I think
really get off the track.
Yeah, I think you again, about 30 years ago when we were talking, we talked about scarcity versus abundance and having that mind shift that is, if we treat folks well, there will be more. Versus we need to scrape more off of them because there's very little and we have to make more of what little we're getting. Now there's a lot of things that happen in business, right? If you're not making money and you're losing money, you still have to make difficult decisions. You have to make difficult choices. We always talk about if there's no margin, there's no mission. If there's no money, there's no mission. If money's not coming in, you can have the most beautiful, wonderful vision and mission for the organization, but if money's not coming in, you can't get there. And so there are decisions you have to make when things are that bad. But things are not as bad as you think if you're making money and you're paying your bills. And sure, things might be tighter than you want or tighter than even your competition. But there are benefits to being true to what you say you're going to do and being true to who you say the organization is.
I have no doubt about it. Those car washes make a lot of money.
Absolutely.
And they should.
I had a client once years ago. I was coaching him and he owned the Sport Clip franchises in Southern Idaho and Northern Utah. And his were the most profitable sport clips. He had the highest retention because it's pretty, they help you get your business going. They have their folks who cut hair, learn all their skills. And every other franchise was losing people after 9 months. So at the end of 9 months, you kept your signing bonus and, you had your certification. And so they lost a lot of people at that 9-month point, because they'd go open their own hairdressing shop or barbershop or whatever. And for some reason, so he and I spent some time working on how do we even improve beyond others. But his retention rate on those people and he was the most profitable franchisee in the United States for several years. He finally sold the franchise. Young guy, but he started buying up these franchises and he treats the hairdressers with respect. He goes in and helps them clean the facility to make sure it's clean. He's got a team of workers who help continue to train the hairdressers on more and more things. We also created a healthcare program because at the end of 9 months, they didn't get any healthcare. At the end of 9 months, folks were going to start their own businesses because they could then go, they needed healthcare, they need more money to pay for the healthcare, blah, blah, blah. So we turned on a healthcare program. At the end of 6 months, you started to get healthcare. At the end of 11 months, you got a bonus for staying with us. And so we put carrots that were right before every other franchisee saw attrition. And so that way he was able to keep people. He also had the highest paid staffs. He had the highest paid hairdressers. They had the most tips coming in from people who leave tips. And it was all because of the investment that he made it cost him more to have healthcare. It cost him more to pay those bonuses, but he had the highest profitability and he had the longest retention of his team only because he committed to keeping those folks rather than constantly churning through people every 6 to 9 months.
And I think the difference in that behavior is someone who can think systemically, think about the whole system and not get narrowly caught in a spreadsheet line item, which I think really kind of can take you down a rat hole.
Maybe it also gets back to what are you measuring? So he would show me when they do their franchisee meetings, he would show me that the other folks would brag about how fast they can recruit, how fast they can hire, how many applicants they get. And he had very few applicants. He had slower hiring, not because he had any process in place, just because he really didn't need the headcount.
Yeah.
And rather than measuring how are you keeping people and what's the result of keeping people, other franchisees were measuring how quickly can you hire and how fast can you churn and how quickly can you get more. So they were measuring what they thought was success. And he had changed the key metrics that you watch. And so if you're hyper focused on those metrics rather than being focused on the longer game or the real game, which is making more profit and more growth in the organization, you kind of lose sight of where you're headed and what the point of the business is. Maybe that's part of it too. What you focus on gets your attention. Right?
Yeah. One of the common threads, and it's not talked about, lifted up very much, or maybe it is, and I haven't been paying the right amount of attention to it. The underlying common ingredient, there are a number of them, but one of them is that the development of other human beings, whether they're your employee or your customer. So if I think about what will this do to advance you? If I think about it from a customer point of view, if I think about it first, is that what will make that experience for the customer want to feel like they're truly I care about them and they're getting value. I'm not just taking their Visa card. And I get that feeling, then, gosh, I want to go back to that experience. The same with a human being. If someone is working there and I go, I genuinely feel here that my sense of development and growth as a human being and really mattering and making a difference and being part of it, contributing, then I'm willing to put up with a lot of other stuff at the edges, because I feel like that's the genesis of why I'm here, to advance and to grow and to including my healthcare, my well-being and that kind of stuff. But if it starts to get truly transactional at either end, I think it's only a matter of time. It's only a matter of time when you will run into a buzzsaw.
Yeah, well, you're constantly chasing the new thing. You have to, because the business if you design it that way, you're constantly chasing. If the car wash had very little repeat business, or it was treated like a transaction, and so I'll go to this other one because it's closer to my house or whatever. You're constantly having to spend money on marketing. You're constantly having to spend money on advertising. You've got to make sure that you're out on billboards and stuff all over the place, just trying to make sure you can keep filling that bucket, because you can't depend on getting repeat business. And so again, it gets back to, what am I measuring? Am I getting a good return on my marketing, or am I just getting great return on the people who had an experience and they came back? I mean, that was cheaper.
Dave, stop me if in our previous podcast I talked about this trip that we had on the Explorer, and that it's interesting because there's one cruise line, right? And how many cruise lines are out there, and how many there's a lot of cruise lines, right? And a lot of people competing for the cruise experience. I'd go back to these guys tomorrow. I'm saying publicly in this podcast, I'd go back. One of the things about that was so remarkable, and you know how hard it is to pull this off. Four Seasons can do it, maybe the Ritz can do it, a few other people, but every single person we ran into, every person, all the time, was, how are you? And was genuine. There was a genuine connection. And I remember talking to one of the waiters, and I said, "You've always got such this great smile." And he goes, "Oh, Mr. Rubis' smile is part of my uniform." It was genuine. It was
that's awesome.
I know, it was and I'm going, and then they do some other things. A lot of these cruise lines, you got to be on for 9 months. Their maximum is 4 months. So 4 months, you can get back to see your family and do other. But there's a whole bunch of things that you knew that was intentionality behind it.
Yeah.
But it was I bet you I'm going to pay a 10 to 15% premium to go back to that.
But you do it in a heartbeat.
Go back in a heartbeat.
We did a Viking cruise, and one of those river cruises, and we had the same experience. As soon as we were done, we were talking about, okay, what's our next one? Because it was such a and the, you don't know anybody else on the cruise, and it's a small number of people, but we started hanging out with the same people because they were also having a great experience and a great time. And it was really the environment that they created, both between the passengers as well as amongst themselves and the staff supporting us. Like, no matter what we asked for, I practiced French because I don't speak French. So Camille was teaching me how to say this phrase in French. So I go to the front desk and I'm going to say this phrase. I'm practicing it down the hallway, and I go to the front desk and I say the phrase, and the woman behind the counter looks at me and says, "I'm sorry, sir, I don't speak French." And I was like, "Oh, but I practiced the whole way coming down the hall." And she goes, "And it sounded perfect. But I'm from Romania, so I just don't speak French." So, but she was laughing, and she was just let me get through this whole thing. She didn't interrupt me. She paid attention. She didn't make me feel too much like an idiot, but it was just those little interactions, the person in the hallway, the moments that's where the connection is made. It's not in big grandiose gesture. It's in the small moments in between that really tells you what their commitment is. And I guarantee I would love to go to one of these car washes just to kind of see what is that. Why does that translate? Because I'm sitting in my car, I got my radio on, and you're just pulling me through. How do you make that difference? Where does that come through?
I'm with you. It's like going to, Garrett always wants, when we're in Texas, I'd never experienced it. I'd never gone to Buc-ee's before. Have you got?
Buc-ee's is great, man.
I know. You have to experience it. Like, I want to experience a car wash. Do we know enough can we do a pizza review on Crew Car Wash? Do we know enough to give them a review, or we're kind of doing it by the very fact they've got such a high Glassdoor score and all the things that we're reading about them, or at least I've read about them. And I know there's more to do, but can we give them any kind of a rating?
So I would say they have a good, solid New York crust, mostly because of their courage around who they target for who they hire, and how they must be wonderful at bringing somebody from I have no clue and my voice is still cracking to being a high performing, highly valued member of that team. There's something in that mix that they're doing with a 16-year-old who this is not going to be their career. They're not going to be there for 40, 50, 60 years. So how do you create that in a probably a high velocity changing headcount, but to do that consistently across the board? I think that's the crust, is they have probably a highly reliable methodology in bringing in people. So it's a good, solid New York crust that can handle some changes in the sauce.
And I think they do some other things in there probably around, you got to understand, you probably like the dough and the cheese, maybe, like, you got to believe that the greeting has got to be something different.
Yeah.
Like, it's not like, where's your ticket?
It's not like the soup Nazi, no soup for you.
No, there's got to be something at the greeting there around. You got the smiley, kind of bubbly, no pun intended.
So they're more like maybe it's great pizza, but it's a great pizza restaurant.
Yeah.
You're greeted when you come in the door. You're brought in. You see the pie being made behind the scenes. And you're like, oh, look at how good that person's doing. Maybe that's kind of it. These folks know what they're doing.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, you get a clean car, but you get a clean car elsewhere too. But maybe there's all the other ingredients that they're putting on their pizza, like
something magical in their sauce.
And their sauce, they have a sauce. They have a secret sauce for sure. I know we're over. I'm thinking, like, I'm working with a leadership team right now. That early days, but like, I'm wondering, like, if you went to take a visit to In-N-Out Burger,
oh yeah,
and you went to Crew Car Wash, like, even if you go there virtually, or if you go to, maybe went to Bending Spoons, or maybe, other people are doing some really interesting things. I think what it does is open, because the experience, essentially what we do as human beings in a workplace, we take something, try to add value to it and pass it on, right? I mean, so there's a common set of ingredients that we like. I mean, we're all making pizza, and to some extent, but yet one of them tastes like so friggin' much better. Like, it's the Portnoy thing. Like, he goes to every pizza place, but some are way, way better than others. But they're making pizza. We're all
washing cars. There's a bunch of people washing cars. Why? Okay.
So I'm just going with, it's there's so much to learn out of this. Like, it's so inspirational for these companies to do this kind of stuff. And like, I think in the cool, high tech,
Yeah, but
snazzy dazzy
it
stuff.
goes to show you, Lorne, it doesn't matter what industry, no matter how sexy or unsexy it is, you can provide a differentiating experience by creating differentiated employees.
Yeah.
By,
I had a guy in my MBA class who primarily does, for lack of a better term, ditch digging. That's his business, a very profitable business. And he digs ditches for utilities, and he hires mostly temporary workers. And so I was challenging him on peer to peer around, can you really engage these temporary workers around having input and around kind of thing? And you could see kind of like, that's not traditionally the way that they had done it. They had traditionally been more transactional. You go to wherever Home Depot, pick them up, bring them to, and when you start doing it, like, they have a lot to say around the tools they use, the time they do it, the safety involved, and that kind of stuff. And all of a sudden, your customers that you're digging these ditches for, and your margins are getting better, they're getting a better experience, and people feel a sense of control. I mean, my point is that you're right. You can, if you're committed to the environment, you're committed to the human beings that are there, and you're not just trying to squeeze a transaction out of everything.
Yeah.
I think you have a different experience.
And Lorne, I from an encouragement perspective, I think, given that it's so that apparently it's so rare that we're calling these very few companies out, but there's a whole bunch of car washes and there's a whole bunch of technology companies. The bar feels like it is so low.
I know.
You can make a significant difference simply by just meeting the bar,
And anyway, so if anything in our audience here, I hope that maybe just as we go to wrap, is that be that leader that is asking the question around, how do we take this to another level? Which doesn't mean, because a lot of times that means another level.
AI. We need to AI the crap out of this thing. Throw AI at that car wash.
Let's take headcount down. Let's go.
Yeah.
Like, maybe you need to take it up. It sounds like it means that I can't be performance based. I can't be hard nosed. I can't be money making. And it's not that at all.
Oh, no, it's not that at all.
Side of that. But it's hard to convince people because, it's just hard work. And
well, the balance sheet sometimes is louder than the employee sheet. And sometimes the balance sheet feels like there's more urgency behind it than, because folks will be patient. Folks will hem and haw about their feedback. Folks will go, well, we were good last month and now things are, so yeah, don't worry about it. Things will go back to normal. So folks are more patient than a spreadsheet. Folks are more patient than a balance sheet. Folks are more patient than a quarterly board meeting. But slowly and surely, they will vote with their feet, right? And so the tyranny of the urgent can sometimes cause us to lose focus on what really matters, right?
I think that's a really great and a wise quote, because it is a tyranny of the urgent around. And sometimes it's
I will take the wise quote.
Well, you know what? I know that's the last one I'm giving you. but it's also like, you don't have to squeeze it out every single quarter. Like, I mean, I think there's a lot of pressure on it, but it's not like you got, it's like Simon Sinek says, people are on like towels. You don't try to wring everything out of them. Right?
Yeah.
Like, anyway, the tyranny of the urgent. That's a good, that's almost as good as the A and asshole or whatever it was. You know what I'm saying? Anyway.
I'd rather have a hole than an a-hole.
I don't know, something like that. There's a hole there involved anyway. Hey, see you next time. I love you. Take care.
Love you, Lord. Be good.
Take care. Bye.